is how we roll, man. Some rock, some win, some roll, man. Some rock, some win, some roll, man. Some rock, some win, some roll, man. Some rock, some win, man.
So, hello, welcome everybody to Zig Showtime number 34. I do not have a ton of relevant news specific to like the Zig community at large, but what I can tell you is that I've been hard at work in getting ready, like the pre-production of Zig Showtime, of Software You Can Love, the in-person conference, and it's been an interesting journey. I've never done this kind of work before, like to this level, and I'm sure people doing it professionally are gonna laugh at the simplicity and how much trouble I'm having getting this stuff ready. But it is what it is. You have to start somewhere. So I should have good news soon, hopefully. And that's pretty much it for show-related updates. So let's dive into the talk right away. So I think this might be probably close to my favorite type of talk. This is going to be a talk about a tool written in Zig, cross-platform, that helps you create art. Colton has a very interesting story to tell about also how it got here. So please give Colton a warm welcome.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Pixi, a program that I've been working on for the past few years. A little bit about me. You might have seen me on the Zig Discord as Foxen. I've been trying to post kind of regular updates on the things I'm working on. Just a little bit about my backstory. I graduated actually with a degree in architecture, designing, modeling, rendering, and producing construction documents for apartment complexes, which has nothing to do with development. But I, in college, kind of dabbled with visual scripting. We used a program to 3D model that had plugins for Grasshopper, which was a program that allowed you to kind of script how you were going to model, which was kind of interesting. At the same time, I was learning Unity and trying to build little 2D games and things like that. At one of the architectural firms I worked at, I ended up learning some C++ and writing some plugins to assist everybody in the office in the drawing programs. So I got a little experience there. And while I was still learning C# outside of work, I started using a framework called Nez, which is written by Prime31, if you've seen him in the Discord as well, which is a great program or a great framework. And I was just kind of looking at the pain points that I was having trying to manage artwork for a 2D game, for frame-by-frame animation and things like that. And he kind of started looking into Odin and Zig and a few other languages, and I just kind of jumped on board, and I fell in love with Zig. Zig was my favorite, and yeah, I love building tools, small games, things like that, and just to talk a little bit about Pixi and how it started. I was working on a sprite packer just to join all of my images into one image that I could use to draw in my game. And I was trying to make enhancements to it, but every time that I got a little further with that, I wanted to go further back down the pipeline to where I was drawing and doing all these things in the same program. So I wanted to build something, if I could, to allow me to create artwork and package it and get it ready for the game all in one step. I also wanted to learn more about Zig. As somebody without kind of a computer science background, I didn't have a lot of foundation. I was just learning on my own, and I just wanted to learn more about manual memory management and things like that. I also wanted a better tool to work on my own other projects, something I was really just making it for me, but I decided to make it open source in case it would help anybody else. And I wanted something that was easily cross-platform and easy to build, and Zig offered that. And at least for me, the build system is what really pulled me in at first, because I was kind of sick of dealing with all the different build systems I was currently using, and it was a pain to learn. So I really wanted something simple. Um, so just getting into my background here, I started with Unity, and I'm just going to speak on my experience, but uh, trying to manage tons of different images uh, and get them into Unity and set up animations and all that is difficult. And especially whenever you're constantly updating things and you're updating all these files, and if you're exporting, hundreds of sprites from your art program and then trying to get them named correctly and not have any problems there, it's kind of a pain. And organizing all those, keeping them straight, making sure you have the correct sprites. If you want to swap something later, it's kind of a pain. Um, and at least in my case, whenever I was going from all these individual sprites to trying to get them into animations and things like that, putting them into a single texture like you'd want to do for performance and for other things like that, um, kind of is wasteful in a lot of ways, because they get set up into a grid, and you have a lot of extra white space or blank space around each sprite. So ideally, you'd want it to be tightly packed, where there's no extra space, and um, you have the data available to draw those sprites individually from that packed image. And just in case anybody is unfamiliar with what an atlas would be, this is an atlas that I'm using for one of my other projects. This is after packing it into one image. It's hundreds of different animation frames all tightly packed together. Um, so just looking at the bottom, the frame, like the workflow I was using before, was like using various programs to draw the art and then exporting as individual images. Then you have to manage naming all those sprites. If you Usually they're named the animation name and then underscore 0123, whatever. Um, if you wanted to go this route, which I felt like was the only way I could go about it, was to pack all those images into a single image and then slice it back inside of the engine or framework, which in my case was Unity, and then determine what makes up the animation. So you're kind of reworking what you did previously to get that information into the engine, and then finally you can draw the sprites in the game. What I was thinking was we could include the sprite packer in our art program and kind of eliminate a few of these steps. One of the key problems I was facing was getting the origin right of these sprites, because I was working on a top-down game and I wanted to sort by the Y position, and to set all those origins after drawing them and you're in an engine and you're just having to manually go place them all was a real pain. And I thought maybe we could allow you to create your animations, use that information from the animation, what sprite is part of an animation, and handle naming the sprites, and then export a file alongside of it that's a JSON file that allows you to easily find where a sprite that you want is and get the UV coordinates of it and be able to draw it efficiently. So kind of take out several of these steps and streamline the workflow. What I kind of was inspired by was how VS Code works. And I know it's not the perfect editor, but I liked how each project is just a folder. And inside of that folder is all your source files, and switching to a different project is just as simple as opening another folder. So I figured I would keep the same process, and you put all your art files in one folder. You could have subfolders and things like that, and easily be able to access all of your files without leaving the program, without having to go into File Explorer. Um, so the workflow now is just draw your art, set up your animations, pack them into an atlas, and then you have everything you need to draw them in a framework or an engine. Um, Generally, each file is just a grid. So um, if you need different size sprites, you would just create a new file, and you could start drawing new animations, new sprites in that new file. And then since sprites can be packed tightly because we're keeping track of all that information, you can just choose tile sizes for your starting point that are oversized, and leave plenty of space for you to draw animations and things like that. So like for a character, if I wanted to swing a sword or something, have plenty of room to draw all that, and not have to worry about overdraw because the sprite packer will take care of that for me. um, just to take a look at the program itself, I took a lot of inspiration from VS Code, and I liked having a sidebar like this and being able to switch between menus that way, and then um, keep everything kind of out of sight, out of mind if you're not using it. Um, I also quickly added in theming. So I, this was a kind of an experiment as well for me to learn about. This is built using Deer IMGUI, which is used by a ton of stuff, but generally it tends to look kind of the same across programs. And I kind of wanted to see what I could do to break out of that. Um, so just to step through the program, we have the sidebar over here with the file explorer that shows all of your tree of files. And it's not just your files. You can have other images and references and whatever you want in there, and it'll still show all of your files. And then the .pixi files are your main art files. Um, anything inside of your root folder will get packed together. So that's what's determining whether or not it turns into the packed atlas is whether they're in that base folder. So other options on that sidebar are tools, layers, sprites, origins, animations, and then the sprite packer, and then the settings as you move down the sidebar. Um, and then we have the main editing window where you can zoom and draw and do all your stuff. Every time that you zoom and let go, it snaps to pixel perfect zoom steps. So it's easy to see your art as it's going to be in the game. And then I wanted to build something that was a little fun to use. So down here, I'm calling the flipbook. And I was kind of thinking about like old school, like drawing a bunch of things in a row and just flipping through it. And I wanted to be able to just quickly scroll through all the sprites, and you can edit in this window as well and resize. And if you would like to draw in just that single image and see your previous and next frames, you can also play and preview your images here as animations, see what frame you're on, and adjust the frames per second and things like that. So one other thing is what I was talking about earlier is being able to set where the image draws at, because typically it's going to draw with the top left corner at wherever your position is going to be. And I wanted to easily be able to set offsets to that so that you could draw a character with the 0 point at their feet or things like that. So I made a way where you can select multiple sprites and edit their origins at the same time. So it's a really painless process while you're drawing your art. And once you set them, they're good generally until you want to get to your game. So just to illustrate that, that point for that character is being set at their feet and things like that. Um, so next we have the packing window. So this is just showing how easily you can pack. It's just a single button for your full project. You can choose whether you want to use the full project or just the open files or whatever you'd like. And it kind of gives you a little bit of data about how many sprites you have, how many animations, and your final atlas size so that you can keep track of what all's in there. Um, I really wanted to work on reducing the steps of things that you're going to repeat many, many times. So, just being able to come back here, hit pack after you make some edits, and then repeat last export was super nice for me because I'm making tons of tiny edits and checking in game and coming back and editing my artwork. So it was really nice to not have, a ton of steps between running and checking it in the game. Um, so just as a little bonus, I also was working on this game here, and I wanted to draw shadows as dynamically as possible. This is all just 2D. And so I needed to get height information into each pixel. Um, so I decided that I would just have a copy of my atlas that is just a red channel going from 0 up of how tall a pixel is, so how tall the character is. And then I can do calculations in a shader to determine if a pixel's in shadow or not. But it was a real pain to draw gradients like that by hand because not everything is just straight, 0 up. Some things have flat surfaces on the top or change height in different ways. So it was really hard to determine what you're looking at in most programs because those gradients, you can't really tell if a red is just one value higher. So I drew the values on top of each pixel, and then you can adjust the height as you draw. And that produces a atlas that looks kind of like this, which is a little crazy. Um, just if you're curious of why these have to look crazy like this, I was doing palette swaps as well. So you can see this is a very small project I'm working on, and I'm already getting close to 1,000 sprites. So managing a bunch of things like this it's a lot nicer than having to export individual images and manage it that way with just the sheer number of things that you're working with. Um, let's see a question. Can this export to curve files? It cannot right now. I'm still very early in this project. I'm gonna keep using it for myself. So I plan on keep building and adding to it as I go. Um, coordinate maps. Yeah, I haven't used anything with a curve file. But anyway, I just wanted to create a way to reduce as much of that pain as possible. Um, as of right now, it doesn't really compress much. I need to look into things like that, but I really just wanted to save it in a way that was easy to use. Right now, it just creates a zip file with all of your layer information and things like that. And you can just unzip it if you need to get at what's inside. Um, and then I kind of wanted to take it a little bit further and look at how I'm importing this information. So at this point, a sprite is just a name and then coordinates for its source. And then, like I was talking earlier about the origin, the offset that you have. And that's all the information that a sprite is. So whenever I pack the sprite and export that atlas and its information, the JSON file that it comes with, you could just load it up in any framework or engine and just have a list of these sprites with their name, source, and origin. And I thought, it'd be kind of cool if each sprite is nothing but an integer. So it's just an index into that list of sprites that you have in your atlas. And you can see that's how I'm drawing them here. Whenever I'm drawing the body of the player game state atlas and sprites is my collection of sprites, and I just pass in an index for whatever I want. So animation is just increasing an index, and you don't have to mess with carrying that data in each sprite and things like that. Um, and the nice thing about that is you could use a build step to process that information and generate zig files so that you, if you use ZLS, you have, which is awesome by the way, um, you have like free indexing of all of your sprites. You can just hit dot and have access to all the names of your sprites and see what they are straight from the editor. Um, but anyway, I just wanted to show you guys a little bit about Pixi, a little bit about what I've been working on. I wanted to give a special thank you to Michael and Steven for Zig Game Dev libraries and Mock Core and all the additional libraries to Mock, because um, this program actually started using Zig Game Dev and its backend and everything. It uses WebGPU, uses Dawn specifically, and I wanted to learn both. I wanted to learn both of their frameworks because they're fantastic. And I ended up writing most of the program with Zig Game Dev's backends and then switching to Mock Core about halfway through, just so I could learn both of them. So that was kind of an interesting exercise, just switching between the two and being able to see the differences between uh, each framework. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to talk about it. I really appreciate it. One cool thing, I don't know if you guys have seen me posting different images of working on a game for my daughter. My daughter's fourth birthday. It was this past weekend, and I drew all the art using Pixi, and I got it all put together and gave it to her on her birthday on Saturday, and it was a big hit. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Colton. Um, that was very nice. So let's see questions from the audience. Actually, so by the way, for people in the audience, if you have a question, this is the time. If you want to make my life easier, prefix your message with Q colon if you can. So while people maybe write down some more questions, I have maybe a couple of my own. So first of all, you mentioned like that you use both the game dev and Mach. Have you? Do you think there's space? Like there would be a reason to even have some kind of integration with either of them? This is like I'm actually not even sure. Like this is a genuine open question.
Sorry, do you mind explaining a little bit? You mean an integration with Zig
Yeah.
Game Dev or Mock?
Yeah,
So
I'm.
built into like their framework and being used in to develop for them?
Yeah, yeah. Do you? Is there anything that like you could output that would be where I'm sure that there's probably plenty of standardized ways to just output a standardized type of data and have the developer do the glue. Fine, but do you
Yeah,
think? Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, definitely. I was actually looking at Mock. They're working on 2D graphics and things like that right now. And the way they're handling it is kind of similar to what I was approaching, which was to integrate it with ECS and just have sprites be a collection of data like that. And it seems like writing a simple importer or things like that would be pretty cool to have, so that you have everything you need. It's really convenient, I will say, on my own projects at least, to have all I need is Pixi and VS Code, and I've got everything I need to build a 2D game. um, which is kind of interesting. But
Nice. Okay, so people in chat were asking earlier, and maybe you already hinted at an answer, but maybe it might be worth also just to make sure you saw the full question and got over everything. So the first one was from King, where he was asking, "How do you compress the sprite sheet?" And I'm not sure what the question exactly. If the question was about the .pixi files or whether that was about the final atlas, but
yeah, as of right now, the final atlas is just a PNG file, which is what I typically use
Mhm,
for all my artwork anyway. Um, I haven't really looked into compression of it. It's, I will say, like, let's see, we're looking up here. Um, the file sizes are pretty small generally with how tightly you can pack them because there's like no extra space on the side. So that's 726 different sprites for my game, and these are drawn, I mean, at 32 by 64 for a character size. So packing them together, you only get 512 by 512 pixel image at the end, which is pretty
mhm.
small for like all the artwork that you have. Just to look at, let's see. Um, if I go to the game that I built for my daughter, so I drew all the backgrounds and added it to this as well. It ended up still being pretty small. It can handle packing whatever size sprites you want. They don't all have to be similar sizes or anything like that. But it would be cool to be able to look into different formats for exporting to get that final atlas as small as you need because that's all you really need. You don't have to keep track of all the artwork files in your final project as long
Mhm.
as you have that final atlas. So getting that as small as possible would be great.
Understood. Have you heard about I forget the name. I think it was QOI Koi. Um, Maybe somebody in chat can help me out with the getting my acronyms right. But basically, there was a while ago a bunch of fuss about like an alternative file format, like basically kind of like PNG but simplified. Have you? And like Felix Kweisner XQ wrote like an encoder decoder for it.
No, I need to look into this because that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I have not.
Yeah, and I think there are some projects that are starting to add support for that format. Like it was a pretty cool story. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's see. We have a question from Aukras. Pixie description says it's cross-platform, but have you tried building and running it on Linux?
Good catch. It should be. Everything is there for it to work. I do not currently have a Linux machine. I need to get into that. I've just been so busy between working on multiple projects that I haven't. Um, Everything is there. There is a one or two libraries that are required for Linux. I think GTK3 development branch or something like that is needed for native file dialogues, which was kind of an interesting conversation I had with Steven with Mock is how to package things for
Hmm.
Linux and what you need to include. Because right now, for the other two platforms, for Mac and Windows, everything's included. So you don't need any outside information. Um, but uh, that's a good catch. I need to set up a Linux machine and test and make sure everything works as it should. I haven't heard anybody say that it doesn't, but at the same time, I don't know if anybody's using this right now.
Hmm. You need users. Like
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
using
yeah.
it on Linux has to step up and
Exactly. It's
scratch their
just
own
me
itch.
right now trying to break this thing. I need other people
Yeah.
trying to break it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So let's see. In terms of compression, apart from Atlas packing, does Pixie have support for run length encoding or and slash or palette encoding or some plugin interface for it?
Right now, no. I need to. There's a lot of things that I want to add to this. Like, I recently tried to do a semi-small release at zero point 0.1 or something like that, just like to let people know,
Right.
you can try it now. It generally works. This is the first project of mine that I've ever gotten this far, so it's all learning for me.
Nice.
Um, palette encoding would be awesome. I don't know a ton about it. I know for these images right here, um, I'm using palette swapping in my game through a shader. So the red channel corresponds to the X position on a little palette image. And I was trying to think about how I could streamline handling that. So that's one of the things I want to look into next.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because that can save a lot of time and effort if you're able to reuse your sprites with different colors and things like that.
Yeah. Great. So let's talk about the GUI a little bit. So some people were
Okay.
asking, why did you go for a immediate mode GUI? Like, did you? I don't know. Was it just a preference? Did you consider all the trade-offs?
I kind of, well, early on, I mean, looking at this, Mock doesn't currently have a GUI library. I just kind of retrofitted ZGUI, which is the game dev's immediate mode bindings. But um, I had been using Dear IMGUI back whenever I was working on things in C Sharp and things like that for a long time. So I kind of knew it already.
Mm-hmm.
And I always found it kind of interesting, and I thought it was really easy to write code like that, where you're you're setting up your GUI and everything as you're processing the data, which I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of reasons that that's terrible, but I just wanted to see how far I could take it and see um, how much I could alter it, change the colors, change the visuals of it, and try to make something clean and nice
Mm-hmm.
that's using DRI and GUI, and just see how it goes, I
Nice.
guess. um, and it was pretty easy to set up and pretty easy to get everything going how I want it to. There's a lot of little, let's see, I don't know if we want to do like a little demo of what it looks like, but I tried to make the editor a little fun to use. So let's go into here. So this is that sprite sheet for the character animation. As you scroll through here, it just kind of flips up and goes through. You can select and it'll automatically scroll to each individual one. You can see these green and orange bars show you your beginning and ends of your current animation. And you can hit play and just watch. You can edit the size of anything you want. You can edit the size of your sidebar and this, which was really easy to get set up with IMGUI, and that, yeah, I'm sure it's mostly because I already had an understanding of it a little bit. Um, I wasn't sure of my alternatives. I know I could use C libraries. I hadn't done a whole lot of that prior to this, so I really wanted to get a good look at Zig from a bunch of different points. And using a big C library, I was like, there's no way it's going to be easy. And it ended up being really simple with Zig, just the way you could so easily use C,
Mm-hmm.
um, which was interesting. Um, I
Yeah.
have a few things going with being able to load like low spec templates for the palettes. You can just drop them in a folder and they're available to you. And it comes with a few and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I tried to build in some settings so that I wanted to make it as customizable as possible so that, because people that draw in these programs are going to use them pretty heavily. And I want it to be something that's a little more fun to use.
I think I have one last maybe thing related to this that you might be interested in. So, are you familiar with the Handmade Network?
I've heard of it. I've watched a few things, read a few things, but I have not been involved at all.
Okay, so it's a very early project of theirs. So my point is that I'm not necessarily recommending you jump in, head first right away, but it is something that you might want to be on the lookout for. So what they're building is a um, runtime, a WebAssembly runtime that gives you also like a standardized GUI toolkit, which happens to be also immediate mode, by the way. Which basically it's meant to be a way for you to more easily create cross-platform applications. Obviously, if you're interested in going down the adventure of figuring out how to do things natively platform by platform, obviously you're welcome to do so. I'm guessing Mach is also going to help you a lot in that regard. But
Right.
maybe like an alternative thing that you could look into eventually could be also the idea of targeting Orca. That's the name of the WebAssembly runtime. Long story short, you need to compile your Zig program targeting WebAssembly. That's going to be easy. You need to use their I/O operations. So either by then we will have support in the Zig standard library, or you will have to use, like you will have to create your own platform layer in a sense. But that's pretty much it. And in the end, what you get is like a cross-platform application like this.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they kind of market it like when they explain it in like the elevator pitch is that it's like Electron, but without the web stuff, without a web stack. So
Okay.
maybe you can find this interesting.
Yeah, actually, I caught your stream showing Orca, which I thought was really cool. I hadn't seen
Yeah.
that before. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe it could even be a way of like if at some point you want to have more users, that's probably a decent way of getting more users because they will. Most of the people in the anime community, I think, is interested in or are work in like the video game industry, so they're gonna be interested, I think, in this kind of tool. So
Right.
just putting it out there.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I think this was a short and sweet Big Showtime episode. That was great. Colton, please, final words so we can finally close the show.
Well, thank you, Loris. I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk on Zig Showtime. Again, thank you to everybody that's helped me along the way with all this. I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Nice. Thank you for for coming to speak on Showtime. That was also very cool. So, and with this, it's the end of the show. I don't have anything particularly interesting to say at the end. So actually, no, I do have one thing. In I think a couple hours from now, a another talk from Software You Can Love Vancouver is gonna premiere on YouTube. So if you're interested, it's gonna be the talk from Abner talking about the Handmade Network. This is gonna be from Abner Coimbra, who is one of the founders of the Handmade Network, and he's going to talk about his terminal emulator. He has a very, very different take on what those should look like compared to Mitchell. So if you want to see, like a very alternative perspective on a very alternative take on the idea of a terminal emulator, do check it out. I'll give you just one tiny spoiler. Imagine if your terminal emulator did not have a shell. Like you didn't need to have a shell to run under your terminal emulator. Just think about it. And with this, have a nice day.
This is how we